Well, today everybody, in this video, we're going to be talking about what I learned from my first ever solo show. Let's get into it. So what is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. My name's Ray. I'm a guitar player here on YouTube, and I feel very compelled and very excited with you all to share with you all what I learned from this past weekend, my first ever show. And yeah, I figured I'd sit down today with this video and just sit down and just talk about it and just talk about the pros and cons of just being a solo artist. So in case you guys missed it, I played my first ever live show as a solo artist under the moniker Stay Metal Ray this past Saturday in Newark, Delaware, and I just have to say, man, I'm on an absolute high. I feel like I'm on the right path, and I feel incredibly just happy with my creative flow, my live presentation, all the above. But with that being said, it comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of things to make sure you're on top of, and that can create a lot of stress, a lot of just worry, and a lot of anxiety, right? The playing is the easiest part. Like, we all know how to play guitar, you know, generally speaking. I'm still trying to figure it out myself, but it's all the other things of like, okay, everything's working in my house, but when I travel, is it going to work when I set up and do sound check, or not even do sound check, get, you know, a line level, and that's it. So all that angst, all that anxiety was certainly running through my head prior to the actual show. So the first thing that I learned, first and foremost, is, it's kind of obvious, but just keep everything as streamlined as possible. And with that being said, you guys are going to kind of, I don't know, make fun of me maybe, but I went completely digital with this performance. That's right, I used my Line 6 Helix. I kind of retooled my patches and my whole snapshot setup. If you guys want a separate video, I'd be more than willing to make that, but I don't want to take, you know, all that time for this video, because this video will end up being like 45 minutes long. I went with the floor unit, the Line 6 Helix, for the obvious ease of use, streamlined. You ain't got to worry about too many different variables and just things going wrong. Yeah, I went right from my Line 6 Helix, and then I had the two stereo outs going to two different separate locations. The left side went right into my own personal mixer, which I'll talk about here in a second, and then the right side went into my Headrush FR-FR112 cabinet, and then from there it went out of the Headrush FR-FR into the mixing board into front of house. That way I could have some stage sound, and then also to send it direct from the FR-FR, and therefore you have best of both worlds. You don't have to mic up any sort of cabs or anything like that, but you also have some stage volume, and you know, it just is a best of both worlds scenario. Side note, I think going forward, if I was to use this setup again, I would get another FR-FR cab, because the 112 Headrush, although it's very, very loud, you know, in your living room, in your bedroom, in your house, in rehearsal space, something about when you get into a big giant open room, whether it's a, you know, a bar or a theater or a venue, whatever you want to call it, man, it just needs to fill that space. And in my opinion, just one FR-FR in a big open room doesn't really do the job, and that's just my own honest, humble opinion. Like I said, if I was going to do it, having two, just maybe one on each side, or kind of catty-cornered facing me, more or less than facing the audience, I think would be a better alternative, because again, the 112 really didn't do that much in terms of adding ample stage volume for me personally. So, like I said, I went out of the Helix, and then I went into my own little DIY cheap mixing board, and this is where the biggest concerns were going to be for this live setup for me. I've never really run in-ears, I've never had a personal mix, I've never had any of that stuff. I've always had the kind of cliche classic rock and roll, just crank it up to 10 and just, you know, jam, you know, no click track, any of that stuff. With that being said, you know, now as a solo artist, I don't really have, you know, the means to play multiple instruments, obviously. So, you know, some things need to be on tape, as well as certain things need to be, you know, playing in real time, like the sound effects and the synths and the choir in the background. You know, I can't, I don't have the budget for all that stuff just yet. So, gotta compromise a little bit. So, in my mixing board, I was sharing it with my drummer, Pat, our drummer, Pat. This is a team. You guys know Pat. You guys have seen Pat for quite some time, and Pat's just a phenomenal player, so it was an honor to have him on stage as well, because it just, you know, adds that much more of a realistic feel to the performance, rather than just me being up there with a drum track. That's kind of lame. So having a drummer on stage with me as well made a huge difference, so I was really, really thankful for that. So thanks, Pat. I certainly enjoyed that, and I think the audience enjoyed it as well. So thanks, dude. Appreciate you. So what else was going into our little mixing board? Well, there's two other sends we had. We had the click track and we had the backing track. Now I was using a passive DI box, a stereo DI box, where I was sending both the click, I have to think about this, both the click and the track into my mix, but I was sending just the backing tracks and not the click to front of house. And I was able to do that using one of the through sends on the DI box. And then from there, man, it's pretty straightforward. Just took the XLR out of the DI box and then gave it to the front of house and then just ran it through the PA, and it sounded great. How I have the backing track set up is incredibly common, nothing, revolutionary here. Just click on the left and then all of your tracks on the right. So everything was coming out in mono on my tracks, and that is a bit of a compromise. I would love to have stereo tracks, and who wouldn't, right? But in terms of just a very first run DIY kind of setup without any sort of tech or crew, that was what was the easiest for me to just make it make sense, not only for myself, but for Pat as well, the drummer. Yeah, that's just how I had it set up. Here's an example of one of my backing tracks. This is what I'm listening to in my ears. It's a little jarring, having the click on the left and having the tracks on the right. It's a little weird, so what I ended up doing towards the end of the night, once I felt more comfortable and I just, got in the moment, I guess, as I took out my click track and I was just playing to Pat, because Pat had the click, and I've always just played to a drummer anyway, so it just made a more natural kind of feel, and then I just had my tracks in here on the right side, just kind of, in the background, just kind of keeping a little reference point. I could hear it, plenty fine through the PA, through the, actual venue. It was loud, so I didn't really need this, but these were just kind of like safety nets, you know what I mean? And to cue all the songs, I was running it through my iPhone, something we all have, a smartphone, right? And I was using the app called SoundCue. Basically, you create your tracks. I've created all my demo tracks here and all my backing tracks here. And then you just sync it to your phone and then sync it to the app, and then you can have the means to, have the different tracks in different orders and create your kind of own little set list on your phone. Incredibly helpful. So I was just running the show on an iPhone. It's kind of funny, man. That's why there's really no footage of the show, especially from my own phone, is because I was using it, right? It was a part of the show. Another thing I learned is a nice little segue about the show is, for this first one, it was just too much sensory overload, I guess we'll call it. Too much worry, too much making sure everything worked, that I didn't really feel comfortable to also film and record as well. It was too much for the first go round, and I'm just very thankful that people in the crowd took pictures and took videos and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just another thing that I had to worry about. So the filming is just something I had to get more comfortable with, but having this setup is something that I feel like is a workable, usable setup for the time being. And once I use it more and more and troubleshoot it, whenever something goes wrong, I can fix it, because nothing's ever perfect. Long story short, when I have more opportunity to continue to use this setup, I feel more comfortable, and then I can start filming and recording as well. To continue, another thing I learned about being a solo artist in my first ever live show is merch is where it's at. I figured it out, everybody. I just never realized that anybody would want to buy things from me until I did a first run of CDs, and they just sold out within 24 hours, thanks to you guys. So thanks so much, man. So that's why I have a vinyl pre-order still going. If you guys want to check that out, the link's down below. But I also created t-shirts, and I also had some CDs and some posters that I was selling as well. So it was a whole big thing, and I've just realized that, man, if you're passionate about something and you have something to offer of quality to your fans, to your friends, whatever you want to call them, people will support you. And that's something that I didn't realize that was possible, because I never realized anybody would want to buy something with, my attachment to it or whatever. So that was really refreshing, really humbling, and it made me feel good. So I was able to, sell off some merch and make it a good night. And, everybody was happy with what they got. And it was just an awesome exchange between myself and the people that came to see the show. So thank you, everybody who picked something up. It means a lot. And the last thing I'll say is I am the happiest I've been as a creator, as an artist right now in this very moment. Riding a high from an awesome show, from a very supportive crowd, from a great crowd. I'll be honest, there's about maybe 100 people in the building, but actively watching me, I would say about like 50 people, you know what I mean? But hey, you can make a lot of noise and have a lot of fun with 50 people. And I'm not naive to the fact that I'm just starting out. So, for a first show, it was a lot of fun and it was a great crowd, a very responsive crowd. People were rowdy, people were dancing, having fun. A lot of support in that crowd. So thank you guys. I really appreciate that for those of you who were there. I proved to myself and everybody else that I could do it, that we could pull it off. Pat and I pulled it off flawlessly, and it was a very profitable, fun, exciting night. So those are the main things that I've learned, and above all, I'm just very, very content with my own personal path, we'll say. So everybody, that's just a little recap on this weekend. I hope you don't mind me sharing what I learned and my experience and just, kind of a tell-all on the night. Like I said, I didn't really do too much vlog. I didn't do any vlogging or anything like that. Just wanted to make sure the night went smooth and went perfect, and it went as good as it possibly could go, man. My Solar played great, my Balaguer played great, Helix worked great. A lot of fun, man. So overall, great night, and that's all the things I learned as a solo artist for my first show. So for you, if you're in a band or if you're a solo artist, whatever, and if you have the urge to play, in front of people and play on a stage, from my own personal experience, if you're willing to put yourself out there and be incredibly vulnerable and be like, this is who I am, this is my art, my creation, our creation, whatever, people respond to that, and people look up to that and love that. So, I think there's something to be said about people just going out there and just going for it, you know what I mean? I think people respond to that and they enjoy that. So that was my experience, man. So for anybody watching this video, I just hope you take what I've learned and run with it and just kind of apply it to your own personal setup and settings. And, if there's something that I explain that you don't like and don't think would work for you, don't use that. But hey, because of this video, you're able to come to that conclusion, you know what I mean? So long story short, to wrap up this video, I just hope you guys learned something. And if you didn't learn anything, I just hope you enjoyed just hearing how one man's, desire to play live kind of has come to this. So anyway, man, that's it for this video. I'm going to wrap it up here. If you're brand new to my channel and you want to consider subscribing, I'd really appreciate it. I'm out of here. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay metal. I'll see you guys next time. Later.